here at the Adams Hub. So today, the Lunch and Learn is going to focus on coaching for leaders. All of you are managers or coaches. You are leaders in your respective right and way. Whatever company or business that you have, you are leaders. You are coaches. Because when you're a manager and leading, you have to coach, you have to train, you have to retrain, you have to re-coach and all of that. So it's very important that leaders or coaches is either a make or break it business. It's either make it or break it, or manage you, what I call you develop this high performance. It's either frail or fail. And obviously we want to be successful in everything that we do, but we want to make sure that everyone that we work with and around us are successful too. So that's why it's important that we have to form this psychological safe place, if you will, to make people feel comfortable that they can speak without any retribution, and they can be able to share their idea or brainstorming a thought about certain things. And because some people, when you work with teams or in a business, you have that silence or your pride. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be people giving their opinions, giving their ideas, and giving their thoughts. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I like to always introduce new books. I'm an avid reader, especially when it comes to business books, and I want to share with you 3 books here. I just finished reading this one. It's about 230 pages. How many of you heard the book called The Fearless Organization? It's a great book. I like to go in, I like to highlight my books, when I'm reading them, highlight things. But this book is called Creating a Psychological Safety in the Workplace for Learning, Innovation, and Growth. It's by Amy C. Edmondson. I'm going to set this here. Another book I want to talk about is called Think Again. And this book is Why Good Leaders Make Bad Decisions and How to Keep It from Happening to You. And this book is written by a series of different authors, Finkelstein, Whitehead, and Campbell. And it's called Think Again. And another book I would recommend is Seeing the Big Picture. This book is about business acumen, building your credibility, building your career, and building your company. Because all companies, let's face it, guys, we are all driven by success. We're all driven of those 5 principles. We want to make money. We want to make a profit. We want to make sure that there's opportunities for growth. There's opportunities for access, and also people. So people is very important in any business. Without them, you don't have a business. So once again, I would highly recommend these books. All of my books on Amazon, as opposed to driving to Reno and Barnes and Nobles, because we really don't have a bookstore here to get these quality books here in Carson City. But I just want to recommend those books to you. So let's dive into coaching. What is coaching? Well, I gave you a workable definition back here. Coaching is unlocking people's potential to maximize their own performance. It is helping them to learn rather than teaching. And of course, this quote is by Sir John Whitmore, an author and also a performance coach or performance guru. He was once a racer, but now he's into coaching, performance coaching, and the importance of that. So as we talk about coaching for leaders today, we're going to touch on several things. Each of you should have a handout of a presentation here, so you feel free to write notes on that because I made the notes side pages for you. So let's dive into it, coaching for leaders. So if you have any questions or comments as we go through, please don't hesitate to let me know, or just raise your hand. So, so 32.5% of employees are actively engaged at their jobs. Now, to me, that's a low number. I would say 33%. Or actively, that's the difference between being engaged and actively being engaged at their jobs. Now, let's talk about actively engaged for a moment. We know that means, are you attentive? Are you diligently in your work? Are you transparent? Because some employees can be very emotionally involved. They can be attached. They can be passionate to their work and passionate to their jobs. about their feelings, about respect. And let's face it, some people like to be recognized, and rightfully so, they should be recognized if they're doing a great job there. So why do you think that 32.5% of employees are actively engaged in their jobs? And I want to know what's happened to that other 67%. Anybody like to take a stab at that, and maybe you have some research, and maybe you can sort of tell us or relate some relatable answers as to why that's the case? Anyone? Okay, some of those things I touched on it earlier, and you have to say, well, I mentioned passionate. Well, are they passionate? Maybe they're not passionate about the job. Are they actively engaged, or do they just get up every day? I go to work, I do my job. My boss occasionally will smile at me. He will never have a conversation with me. We will never have an opportunity to sit down and talk about my performance. Any of you have been through that situation? Any of you have worked for a company like that before? You have?
Well, I'd actually like to add to your first
Sure,
question,
absolutely.
but I had a mouthful.
That's okay.
So-
Please do. This is very informal. Please do.
My opinion on the actively engaged would be two things.
Uh-huh.
Is there an open door policy?
Mm-hmm.
And is there opportunity to share and feel safe in providing ideas and opinions on certain projects?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to also add on to that. When a new employee goes into a company, he or she should be given, in my opinion, a handbook, an operational of the company. Or we all know, familiar with what? SMART goals. They should be given the opportunity to know what those SMART goals are. Does every business operate like that? No. It's almost like they go around and give you the 50-cent tour. This is Mike, this is JD, this is Zach, this is Cassandra, and that's it. And they do this and do that. But actually, no one sits down and kind of makes sure that they know how to do their job and do it effectively. And answer any questions. Well, if you need HR, they go down the hall, make a right, and they're there. And if every business were actually take the time and to sit down with your employee initially, look at the investment, your rate of return that you will also save in the long run, because when an employee get ready to leave, and some of them have what we call an exit interview or surveys, some do not. So if you actually look at that survey and say, well, let me see exactly the reason why Denise left my company. But you should have known those answers, or should have known the reasons why from the beginning, not when the person leaves. So it goes back to that annual appraisal. It goes back to that quarterly performance. It goes back to those, just what we call check-ins, It's important that you establish those things. So, these are some of the things that we're going to dive into as we go through the presentation. Any more questions or comments about this? All right, let me go to the next slide, please. So you're going to see some data on the coaching for leaders this morning. So 25%, that's a fourth, of employees quit their jobs due to lack of recognition. Why do you think it's important that, come on, you come to work every day, you get a paycheck, I have benefits, you have sick leave, holidays. So what else do you want? What more do you want? Come on, you come on time, so that's what we ask you to do. But why do you think a fourth of 25% quit their jobs due to the lack of recognition? Anybody want to take it?
They don't feel important.
They don't feel important. I like that. Don't feel important. What else?
This is why the state pays a great pension.
Yeah. You don't get that to win.
It's inspiring to be told that.
It's inspiring to be told. Absolutely. Everybody likes recognition, right? I know I do. A pat on the back, great job. What's wrong with that? You motivate people to do more. Oh, they notice my work. They notice me. You have a different feeling. You feel great about yourself. You said, this is the kind of place I like. Some people go to work, they even say good morning. What's good about it? I'm here. I'm here. Okay, what more do you want? And some people feel entitled because they work. You should be really proud that I'm here because nobody can do the job like me. Well, You know, they may be true, but I think it's important that we recognize. And then sometimes, you know, people say, well, I like to be recognized by giving an award or a plaque or what have you, or a bonus or a check. Okay, they may be fine too. But small recognitions can go a long way. Great job today, Elaine. I like the way you and the team, you handled that project. And see, I'm the kind of leader, even when I was a principal, I wanted to make sure I hired the best and brightest. I took over one school. At that time, we was going through what we called school redesigning. So one of the things I asked the superintendent before they moved me from one school that I really love, and it was doing great, but be careful what you do. When you do a good job, everybody wants to pull you out and go put out some fires in other places, which I did not want to do. But when the superintendent come and called in, what are you supposed to do? Say no? And I started looking at long range, you know, opportunities down the road. So I said yes on two conditions. I have the latitude to interview every teacher, whether they were working there or if I brought in my own people. Because I want to make sure I surrounded myself with subordinates who were smart and knew more than I do. That's important. And my barometer, I use the teacher, I would say, I asked myself this at my time. At the time, my son was like 13. Would I want Philip to be in Zach's class? Would I want Philip to be in JD's class? I use my own son as that barometer to determine my answer. And I didn't have to think about it. It was either yes or no. Because you're only as good as the people that you work with. But I made sure that I recognize my teachers. Because on Friday when they leave, I will be there like 7, 8 at night. When you have all kind of sports, it's like almost working 24 hours a day. With everything from soccer to cheerleading to band to basketball to football, you name it. And me being a hands-on person, you know, because the previous principal, there was everything of mismanagement of funds went on, you know, everything in the world would happen at the school. So it's like, I feel like the Joe Clark going in there and putting out a fire, minus the bullhorn and the paddle in the hand, you know. But still, I had to make sure that the school was conducive to learning. That's the first and most important thing. And that the parents felt comfortable sending their children there. So 25% of the employees quit their jobs due to the lack of recognition. Recognition can be as small as, like I said, if you don't have an award, think of one. You know, think of an award, create one. And then present that award in front of groups at your faculty meetings or whatever the case may be, so the other teachers can see, hey, he or she really values that person, and they value it too. You know, so those are kinds of things here that we want to make sure, and we can transcend. It's not just school. I use that for an example because this is my background. It can be in businesses, it can be in a hospital, it can be with Edward Jones, it can be with the circles, it can be whatever you're doing. Because, you know, your employees or your mainstay to your company. So let's move to the next slide. 72%, which is a little higher, of employees say that their performance will improve with consistent feedback. We all need feedback. We all should request feedback. Check in. How am I doing? You know, am I doing okay? You know, it's something that maybe I'm below par or subpar, and I want to make sure that I'm doing and meeting the goals of the company and expectation. If they don't come to you, arrange for a meeting. Hey, can I have a meeting with you at 1 o'clock next Wednesday? Sure. And then say, look, I just want to know how's my performance? How do you think I'm doing? Because the quarterly review has passed 3 months. Last year, you didn't call me into the office for my annual review. So it's important that you get that feedback because you have to know where you stand with the company. They might be planning to move you out and bring somebody else in. So it's important to know. And then have them to write that down. Why is that important? I like to take a copy of my performance evaluations to my what? Next employer, my next job, if I happen to leave the company or they don't like the services, they don't like what I'm doing, and then they decide that, well, this is not cut out for you, or whatever the case may be. So again, 72% of employees say their performance would improve with consistent feedback. Mike, let me ask you this. I don't know, how many employees do you have? You just you, right?
I have one.
Just one,
Assistant.
okay. So, but why is that consistent feedback important?
Because it's better than to wait till something's on fire to say you should have been doing this. Or having that consistent feedback just makes you make those adjustments as you go along. There should be adjustments.
Should be adjustments. No surprises, right?
And I was going to ask you, what do you think of? I don't like the quarterly reviews as an employee. I always hated them because
You did.
it's fearful.
Well,
It's like they're looking for something that.
yeah, but to me, I look at it as a measurable tool. Because, you've heard the 90, 60, 90 yearly type reviews, and some people do it differently. But I want to know, how am I doing? I solicit feedback. I want feedback. And the more I can get it, the better. Because it lets me know if I'm doing my job correctly. If I'm doing my job the way that you expect me or would want me to do it. So that's important to me, to make sure that I'm doing an effective job. Some people may not like the quarterly report. Some just say, just give me an annual review. But by doing that, you have to keep a track of a lot of steps in their progress. And you can get easily tied up now. I know she did this. She had a lunch and learn for the company, and I don't know, what was that month? What was that title? I always like to keep notes and keep track of that, as opposed to, well, you sitting down with them and I know you did some great things, I just don't know what you did, but whatever you did, keep on doing it. So it's important to track that. So what are your thoughts about consistent feedback? Why do you think this is important?
I think that if you keep a consistent feedback, a quarterly review and an annual review won't be as stressful because everyone's going to know as they go.
Right.
The other thing about consistent feedback, it's a two-way street. So I could be definitely giving feedback to an employee, but they are letting me know maybe where some of my blind spots are, or it also then forms a responsibility for me to create a culture to know that I know what they're doing and that what they're doing matters. It's not just busy work, and that my company wouldn't continue to prosper without their input, without what they're doing. And, and basically a lot of times employees are felt like subpar, or maybe, almost into the point of some of this feedback is, like a parent-child relationship. And I think corporate culture today needs to be more of a team environment of every piece matters.
And also corporate culture today, going back to what I was saying earlier, because it needs to create a psychological safe place. And a lot of people working for the corporate culture don't feel like that's a psychological safe place.
And I think as a leader, you need to work on yourself.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
If an employee has a skill set that you don't have or has ideas, if you're coming from a place of not understanding your own strengths and why you're where you are, then that might be threatening.
Yes.
And you cannot have a very good overall organization if management is threatened by input from
input from the employees. And some managers they feel threatened because what they're trying to do, take my job,
Right.
Some are like that, but I welcome that because it shows you have a strong team.
Exactly.
And what's wrong with diverse views and other views instead of just what I call the A team or the administrative team? And if it's not coming from the corporate office, then guess what? It doesn't matter. And so you have companies out there that really welcome those ideas and suggestions from the employees. And so it goes back, I like when you said culture, creating that ethos or that climate of a good culture, but also the feedback gives the employee a roadmap. Am I going down a road of destruction, or am I going to a safe place, a road of a safe, where I'm innovative, where my ideas, and they've taken my decisions, and we work them into coming up with decisions of what's best for the company.
I also think that just as an employee, you do not have the same vision. So if you're in leadership, if you own the company, your bottom line, your P&L, your
Yeah.
balance sheet, all of that gives you good indicators that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Your employees don't have that same structure
Yeah.
to be able to see, are they doing something worth it? Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Is it to them just busy work to keep them busy?
Yeah.
So that you can kind of ignore them because you don't have time or whatever the case may be. And we do have a responsibility, I think, as leadership to, and the last piece of that is a lot of leadership gets put up there because of the job that they do, and so they get into a management position without having any management training, and so
Yeah.
that's an important piece.
And if a leader's not doing that, shame on that leader, because it should be shared. Information should be shared. You mentioned the P&Ls, the profit and loss, the bottom line, this, but why not share that with the company?
Mm-hmm.
You could, yeah, you're the owner. Everybody knows you're the CEO. Everybody knows you're the CKO, the Chief Knowledge Officer. We know that. But in order for you to make sure that your employees are loyal and stay here, because there's a thing called, a plan. What's going to be your recession plan when you leave or retire, or you could be having health issues or problems? You have to have some plan in place for the company to still grow and still maintain and still be profitable at the same time, but most importantly, having qualified people on your staff. So, yes.
Just one last
Uh-huh.
point. When it comes to sitting down with people and discussing their performance reviews,
Mm-hmm.
there should be either input or involvement from the direct report.
Right.
Because in some companies, the manager gives the review, but that manager or that individual hasn't worked as much as with, say, an employee's key report and know their true performance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guessing.
Yeah, but what you can do is take out that guesswork as the manager or the leader here. I guess I would ask that question and put it back on the manager. What are you doing to help that employee grow? As the leader manager, are we giving them the tools? Are we sitting down with them and providing that mentorship? Are we providing that training? Are we providing that opportunity? Say, look, I see you with great potentials. I see you in doing this position or in my position one day. I'm just using that for an example, So I want to help you grow, because if you have to invest into your own organization, you have to invest into your people or you divest. So I think, good point of what you just mentioned too, Elaine, but that consistent feedback is so important, because people like feedback. They want to know, hey, am I doing a good job? Am I not? And everybody likes to impress the boss, right? Everybody wants to do a good job, right? I know I do. Don't you? Yeah, we all do. So we move to the, please.
I think Elaine brings up a good point about that two-way communication.
Yeah.
And every organization I've worked at has done it a little differently.
Uh-huh.
And one organization that I worked at, they would allow us to give the subordinate, the person, the direct report, the form to fill out, the review form.
Right.
And then we would get it, and we could agree with it, or say why we didn't agree with that, and then also put in our own assessment.
Right.
So it was, a really involved
Yeah.
process, and everybody had ownership of it,
Yes.
which was nice.
Yes.
And then, more to the point is, some organizations where you work, you have to give constant feedback. I'm talking daily and weekly. And it's like, oh, yeah, we'll just wait till the performance review.
No, it's too late.
Let's take care
It's
of
too
it.
late.
Yeah.
Apparently, you didn't do a good job in the hiring process initially, But Zach, to your point, those are called self-appraisals. You have the employee to complete what we call a self-appraisal. Well, let me see how they think that they're doing, and they will rate themselves. To your point, I get the sheet back from the employee. They have a self-appraisal, but over to the side, I do have where I can put in what I think, do I agree or disagree, or what suggestions I have. And then we sit down together and say, okay, this is your self-appraisal, and then this is what I put here. I agree with you on this. I think that, yes, you're here. Punctuality is one of your better virtues. You haven't missed the days. Hey, thank you for that. We really, really appreciate you coming in because I can't do that job that you are doing. So what you do is so important and effective. Now, here, as you can see in this area, you mentioned that you gave yourself a 5, which is the top. But, you know, and there's nothing wrong, but I disagree with that. I think there's some things we can work on and do a little bit better to bring you up to a 5. Not to say 5 is not attainable, but right now I see you as a 3.8 or 3.9. You know, it's still that odd number, that 3 point something again instead of 4, you know. And then you state why and what's the reasons that you said you gave them a 3.9 or 3.4. And then after you have a conversation, then they may say, oh yeah, I see your point, you know. It's not to be argumentative. It's not the point of the, you sit down and do the self-appraisal and your performance review. It's just to go over what you said you are, how you rate yourself, and then me as your manager of what I feel you should be. And you have a discussion. So, you know, even when it's over, hopefully the employee and the manager will be able to both leave and agree without being disagreeable to these things here. Because I don't think, some people say, I'm a 5 in everything. Okay. And you have some people like that. No, I don't need a performance review. I'm good at everything I do. But, you know, that's a difference of opinion. Okay? So let's look at this. 50% of employees are unclear about their performance expectations. Now, if I explain it to you, Cassandra, and I know I did a good job of explaining what you have to do every day, why are you unclear about the performance here? I don't understand. I speak English, and I don't understand why it's not clear to you. Did I leave out something? Did something that I missed? So it's a rhetorical question. You have to answer that. I'm just using your name. I see you still eating over there with your mouth. But would anyone like to elaborate on this? 50% of employees are unclear about their performance expectations. That's over half.
I think it's the why.
The why.
That's what I was gonna say.
The why. Absolutely. The why. The why. Anything else? Why do you think 50% of employees are unclear about their performance expectations? Anybody?
I think that maybe the company doesn't know exactly what they want the employee to do, right? Because you're hiring someone usually because at that point you're at that point of, oh my gosh, I can't get all this work done. And you want them to do some overflow, but you aren't exactly clear about, or the organization is not exactly clear about what they want. And then most of these things can be put all the way back to the point of, you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
It has to be written down.
Yes. You have to have a plan. It has to be supported by a budget. You know, you have to make sure that everybody who's part of that plan are doing what they say they're going to do, including the manager, you know, or the coach in this case. But you need to make sure that the expectations are clear and they are stated. And sometimes, you know, avoid verbal conversations and put it in written documentation.
So
That's the
where
way
does
I
job
look at it.
description come into play?
Well, it can come into play here.
Scope of work, job
Yeah.
description,
That's what I'm saying. It goes back at the beginning, at the very beginning of what we call the new hire process, or some companies call it the onboarding process. You have to establish those up front. The handbook, the SMART goals, the job expectations, the job performance. You know, give me all those things up front. A good HR department or a good onboarding team would do those things. Some companies don't have that luxury. They are small. It could be a 1-person or a 2-person or a 3-person company. But it's still important to treat your small business like if you had a company with 500 employees. So everybody can be on the same page. Because nobody wants to be piecemeal. Here it is 3 weeks after I work. Oh, by the way, Zach, here's your handbook. I forgot to give that to you on the onboarding process. And I need you to sign right here showing that you received the handbook from me. And then you take this piece of paper here. Now, I know he's signing. I'm going to put this in the file somewhere. So it still goes about organizational, or in this case, unorganization. So you want to make sure that all of this is articulated from the beginning, and that it will not be in the ambiguity about what was clear of that person's performance expectations. Does that make sense? Okay. So 27%, a focus on negative feedback causes a 27% decline in performance. Again, as I was reading this book here about the psychological safe place, there's many charts and tables in here that talk about the way things used to be done versus the way things are done now. Well, at this company, our culture is that we don't make any mistakes. We have to do it right the first time. Now, I can see that if I'm in the operating room before having a surgery performance. I want to make sure I take out the liver and nothing else. You know, you have to be accurate when it comes to that. And I was watching, what's that show? Chicago. It come on right after another. Chicago Fire, Chicago Police. It was a Chicago MD, a Chicago doctors. Anyway, the nurse was advising the surgeon, the supervisor, "Sir, I don't think we need to do that. We can save his arm." And he turns around and says, "Who's the doctor here?" So that alone said, well, I'm going to keep my opinions to myself. I know I'm a nurse, but he's the doctor. But I've seen this procedure happen many times. So people shouldn't have to fear that the fact, well, if I say anything, he's going to chew my head off, or she's going to chew my head off. Because I would just say, I don't think we should do that. The question is, going back to your answer, Mike, why? Because I want to hear why she told me I don't think, because she may know something that I don't know. Maybe she read the last medical journal that came in the office yesterday while I was having my coffee break. I'm just saying, you know. So we have to make sure that let's don't focus so much on the negative feedback. Let's look at the positive feedback. I was going back to the old culture. Well, this is the way we've been doing it at XYZ company. This is the way we're going to do it. We're not going to stop doing it that way. The people today, it's different. We have the new millennium, the baby boomers, the X generation, the Y generation, or sometimes I say the why were they born generation. I'm sorry. But anyway, you get it. You have to make sure that your company, your goals, your philosophy, even your feedback structure today focus on what's best for the employee. What's best that you can work together. Because those antiquated ways you used to do business, that's not happening anymore, you know? So I know my wife shared with me, her company was just bought out. And you have a new investors coming in. And one of the things she told me is that they have their own in-house way they track the leads and what have you. And which I understand, because nobody can actually have access to that information but them, not an outside external competitors or companies. But the new owners, they are in their 30s, okay? So they have a different way of doing things and approaches. I understand that, and I shared this with her. I said, well, you may want to hear what's their rationale for wanting to change the systems that you currently have now versus the way you used to do it. And so I'm dying to hear that myself. So at some point I can share that with y'all once they give her the answers for that question. But again, we need to focus on the positive feedback. I think some people get caught so much of in the negative feedback, you know, than the positive feedback. 27% negative, what does that tell me? The 73% of that was what?
Positive.
Positive. So I'm going to deal with the positive, not the negative, because in my opinion, the world is too negative anyway. You know, let's focus on the things that we can really uplift people, to give them that praise, to give them that recognition, to make them feel they're worthy of your company. That's what I want to deal with and look at. I think that's important.
I also,
Any
I also think
feedback?
it's, yeah, I also think it's important that if there is negative feedback, right, if you have strong management and strong leaders, then I would look at that as more of a learning opportunity for myself. Because why did it happen?
Yeah.
And where did I go wrong in my training or my corporate culture of how I see things? Am I not articulating that well, or do they not understand?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if an issue comes up, you know, the biggest thing you can do, I think, as a leader is look to your employee to first say, what's your first response? How would you handle this if I wasn't sitting here? If you couldn't ask me, how would you handle it? And then let them go with that. And then if you have if there's a hard line about why they don't do it that way, then you can maybe correct it as you go. But if it's okay, if it's within your limits of this will go okay, you give people that sense of power to be able to handle what it is they need to handle. And there's not this black and white. And the other thing about the 30-somethings or the other people, some of us that have been in business a really long time have to remember that the rate of education, the rate of change right now is a lot faster than what we originally went in. And there were structures back in the day because there wasn't that same amount of ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. Today, there's probably 100,000 ways of doing what previously maybe there was only 100 ways of doing. So the rate of education, the rate of coming up with answers is so much faster now than it was back in the day.
Even technology, for example. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure, like, if you have children or grandkids, they know more about me than technology. You know, I tell you, because you said the rate of the learning curve now is so much more than when we were coming up, because it was more less structured, and this is the manual, this is the policy, and this is what you would do.
But in our defense, those structures and those procedures and those programs are there because of us.
Absolutely.
In our 50s, 60s.
Right.
And that's where I think we know the foundation, we know the structure and the whys. So we can probably more quickly identify, things that, and we had that experience of what works, what doesn't. Now, let's go. I just want to touch back on the not the negative, but areas of needing improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those you can't just say, well, we're not going to address these.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's areas that are needs improvement, or needs more focus, or I'm going to give you this feedback so that this becomes a positive as well, rather than ignoring sometimes small stuff adds up.
Yeah, I agree. But you and only you would know, unless anybody, I'm not speaking to Elaine, but you have to make sure that you as a manager or leader, that you still cover this, you still talk about this, you still review this, but it's also important, you just can, well, I'm not going to accentuate the positive and don't even address the deficiencies, because those are deficiencies, and you want to make sure you as the leader are bringing that person along, and you do that by coaching, and you do that by making sure they do understand that these are the areas we need to improve on. Denise, I saw your hand.
Yeah, so going back to this, it's something that we talk about with our clients too, and I've worked with youth for years and years and years, and the best approach is old school. It's the sandwich approach, right? You start with the positive, you talk about the negative, and you end with positive. So, like, if I had an issue with JD, and I have him all the time.
Exactly.
But no, I would be like, hey JD, great job on getting this report out so soon. I really need to talk to you about this project that you're working on. Why is it behind schedule, or why did you choose to do it this way when we already talked about it doing this way? And on my way out the door, I'm going to say something positive too. Yeah. So she's not hanging on that negative.
Exactly.
She's not going to hang on the negative. She's going to hang on that I care, that I'm looking at that performance in a positive way, and I want all three of those things to be checked off.
Yes.
So it's not a, she doesn't become defensive.
Right.
Not that I've had to do that with her,
And some people wear their feelings, you know, on the sleeve, and some people really can't, I would say, take the deficiencies or the negative. You know, they always want to be stroked or massaged on the positive. But we still, that's reality, you know.
Yeah.
We still have to address and have that conversation.
And it's uncomfortable, it's hard.
No, I know,
It's really hard, especially when,
But-
so looking at that too and wondering why that, so if you have an employee that's not performing in certain areas, you know, what is that connected to? Why are they not doing it? And, you know, how can I help them bridge that gap?
That's the key. How can I? I like what you said earlier too, when you said maybe it was something that I didn't do. Put it back on yourselves.
How
Put
can
it
I
back
help
on
you?
yourselves, because you don't want that employee leaving, going home, or getting off work that day and have to get in their car and drive, and all they're gonna think about is that negative comment you said to them. And when they walk in the door, hey honey, hey mommy, whatever. You still want to make sure you start off with something positive. I always want to deal with those glows first. Then we can talk about the grows in the middle, and then we end it with something positive. Because once you tell them about the negative, you don't have to keep reminding them over and over. Believe me, they get it. They get it.
They probably already
Uncomfortable
know
it may be, but you still have to have that conversation. Good point. Thank you for sharing.
I usually pose the negative as a question in a lot of ways, right? Is there a reason that we are a little behind on this? And I usually do it, is there right?
Right.
So is there a reason we don't have this
Right,
out there?
exactly.
Is
Yeah.
there a reason you were so hard on that person with this
Yeah.
email? Is that, because I will leave it open to, maybe I'm not gonna judge yet, you know, is there a reason that we did it this way?
Good conversations. Speaking of behind, I won't be behind, so we moved on. Performance acceleration versus performance measurement. We know how important it is. It's acceleration and then the measurement piece. Again, it goes back to the SMART goals I was talking about earlier, SMART. Those kind of things need to be articulated from up front, so they'll know what the expectations are. If you give me the expectations, if you give me the tools, if you give me the support, I shouldn't fail when it comes to performance measurement. Because I know what my job is. You've given me my job description, or we have defined the goals, we have defined the expectations together. You did a great job on that, coach and manager. Now it's up to me to deliver that. You know, and we can, and I know it may sound warm and fuzzy to say, so tell me, what is it that I didn't do? Where did I fall short? Because all we are trying to do is to get that person to what? Have a conversation with us, to get them to talk to us. We really didn't fall short, but that's okay. We still want to give them an opportunity to have a way out. Well, let me see, maybe, tell me more about that. In order for you to get the right answers, you have to sometimes ask the what? Right questions to get the answers that you're looking for. So performance acceleration versus performance measurement. And then as we move to, we have to create an environment. Someone said culture. We have to create that ethos that makes high performance possible. I have walked in some businesses or schools or what have you, and when you walk in, you can feel the excitement and high energy, and people are happy to be there. But conversely, you walk in some places, ooh, it's so negative in here, you can cut it with a dull knife. So you really have to make sure that you, as a coach, a leader, a manager, you create an environment where people come to work feeling great about themselves, they are happy, I'm gonna do a great job today. This is why I always close my emails in a way. I have said, well, I don't say have a marvelous Monday, make it a marvelous Monday. Make it a tremendous Tuesday. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. Make it a tremendous or terrific Thursday. And make it a fantastic Friday. You know? So you have to create that culture where there's high performance and high expectations, and they can be achieved. You just have to maybe just do things a little different sometimes, you know? So creating systems. We talked about creating a performance. Now we're creating systems that measures the right things at the right times. We have to have systems in place. There shouldn't be, I'm going to blame you, I'm going to point the finger. All I'm dealing with is having that psychological safe place in a high professional environment, and that environment that I can speak with candor, that environment that I can speak with openness, okay? And people won't feel offended. Some people will feel offended. You have to know your employees. You have to know the touch points. You have to know how your coworkers feel. So it's important that you try to be relatable to everybody, you know, because we know some people are tough as nails. You know, no matter what you say or do, you can't seem to motivate them, you know, and you really, really want to, you know, like, wow, what is it I'm not doing, Zach? Why did I fall short, JD? Because I'm really, you know, talking to Mike, it's like talking to that brick wall. It's, you know, he has no personality. No, I'm not saying he has no personality. I'm just saying me. I brush my teeth every morning, so, you know, I don't know what it is. But I think you get the point. We have to set the systems and that culture in order to make the work performance a great place to work. And then the culture, we talked about that. The culture equals the right environment. If you have that in place, plus the right systems, yeah, I think everything should go just fine. Now, I want to focus and kind of hang my hat just for a few minutes on what I call the 6 C's: performance, clarity, cultivation, connection, consistency, communication, and commitment. It's important that we cover these things, and I want to say, not necessarily in this order, but make sure at some point of our conversations, at our performance reviews or our annual reviews, that we include in the 6 C's in your conversation. Make it clear. Cultivate the opportunities for the employee. Make sure there's a connectivity, connections. Being consistent, transparent, you know, in what you say or do. Some people, I'm gonna tell you, they just lie. You know, be transparent, you know. Communication is so important. Have an open communication and honest communication. I mean, sure, it may be something that, hey, as we talked about, people don't want to hear the negative. It's tough to have that conversation. I got it. But also, there has to be the appointment of commitment to the organization. So please, please, please make sure that when you have a conversation, either verbally or written, or evaluations or appraisals, that you include those 6 C's, but not necessarily in that order. I think we all know and understand what each of those words mean. It's important that we communicate effectively. We're committed to the work. We're committed to that employee also. And that we be consistent. I can't do one thing for Elaine and then something else for Denise. I have to be consistent in how I treat people. Connection. We have to have that connection to make sure that things, and we're all on the same page together. If we have a disconnect and we over here, you know, people are going to say, wow, you know, why are they leaving me out? Why they feel that I'm not important? And then when some people feel that this is what's happening, this is what you're going to have. They're not going to offer their opinions. They're not going to say anything. They're just going to come to work every day, do their job, and leave. So hey, I'm going to have a lunch for everybody. We're going to have happy hour. They're not coming. They don't feel like that they're part of the team because you didn't try to put forth any effort to bring that connection together. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me move right along. Performance planning. You know, I know some of us don't like to do that, but it's important and necessary. We have that quarterly performance discussion. You know, if nothing else, have a discussion. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes. It can be the questions that the person may have to ask you. Sometimes I like these because there may be something going on I don't know. Well, Mrs. Smith, I need to tell you something. My husband just got informed that he has cancer. And sometimes just things like that can affect a person's performance on their job. But they never share that with you. They don't tell you that. Why? Because you never try to have that conversation with them. you acted that you really was genuinely caring about what was going on in their lives. That's all I'm saying. I know some of us might not want to do this, but to me, it's a check-in. It's that check-in to see how things are going, you know. Well, I'm glad we have this talk, because sometimes you can get surprises. You know, well, I just need to let you know this. I didn't know we was going to have this quarterly performance until the last week, but I just didn't know how to approach you to tell you this. But I decided to take a position with another company. You know, I mean, if that's the case, we shouldn't wait till this quarterly performance discussion to have that. I should have known that, you know, some time ago. I don't like surprises. I like to be, because some people will deliberately wait until it's that time that you have that meeting or discussion, you know. And then, look, I like an open door. You know it's going to be tough to replace you. I want to make sure I have someone that can come in. So now, until I hire someone, guess what? I'm going to have Denise and Mike to sort of pick up the slack from Elaine's position, because she just dropped this bombshell on me the other day. Or the three of us would make sure it's done until we can hire someone. I think too often companies make the mistake of hiring too quickly. They just need a warm body in there. And when you do that, you make a mistake, and that's 9 times out of 10, when you just put a warm body just to say, I feel the position, I would keep on searching, I would keep on posting until I find the right person for that position. And then sometimes you have to promote from within. You know, you have to maybe juggle and rearrange a person who was doing this, but also this person has skills in data. I didn't know that. And this person was working in the data room or the tech IT department. I can just make a switch. Sometimes that means a salary adjustment. Sometimes it can stay in parity. It just depends. All right, monthly coaching sessions, going back to that 30, 60, 90. Informal check-ins. Notice the word is informal, not formal. It just be a simple thing. Hey, Zach, how's it going today, man?
Oh, it's going great.
Good, good. How's everything going in the department? I appreciate what you do, man. You make a difference in here. And I was talking to one of your team members, and they just shared with me how great it is to work with you. And they just saying that you've given them the directions, you're always approachable, you're personable, and you genuinely care about them. I thank you for that, man. That means a lot. Everything else is going okay?
Yeah, everything's going great.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
that's good to hear.
How's the
Thank
family?
you. Family's doing pretty well. Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But you see the point. Just informal check-in, just be, hey, how's it going? You know, you okay today? Everything's all right? Hey, you know, whatever. Did your team win this weekend? Zach, I know those Raiders lost, man. But guess what? You're not by yourself. My Steelers lost too. You know, just to have those quick informal check-ins. And then you have your annual appraisal. Now, that's important. If you bypass the monthly or the quarterly performances, make sure you have that annual appraisal with that person to capture that data. It should reflect what your job performance is. It should reflect the job description. It should reflect what you went over with them when you first onboarded them, so they can go back and look at the rubric and determine and decide that I meet this expectation, that I meet this goal. You know, always within it like this. Is there anything else that we have not covered on the appraisal that we need to talk about? Is there anything else that you would like to share with me? You know, and then this is what I would ask. This is a killer question. As the manager, how am I doing? As your coach, how am I doing? You telling them how they're doing, I want to know how am I doing. I want to hear from them. Well, you know, I actually want to hear from them. One teacher told me one time, well, Ms. Smith, you always in my classroom are more than other teachers. Well, she didn't know. She couldn't have she had poor classroom management. She would constantly send kids to the office. If that's the case, I can put my office right beside your door. And part of teaching this classroom, what? Management. You know, I did have a teacher tell me that. She said, why are you always in my class all the time? Because as I looked at my referrals coming to the office for disciplinary reasons, they all came from your classroom, Mrs. Jones. And that was a tough conversation, but guess what? I had to have it with her. And that was a great opportunity for us to talk about it. Because I asked, I put myself out there, and she told me. Denise, you had a hand up?
Yeah, just real quick, I think the annual appraisal also offers that opportunity to look at those expectations.
Yes.
Are they too high? Is there
Yes.
too much on my plate?
Yes.
You know, or, and going back to the SMART goal,
Mhm.
that's, you know, because we review SMART goals
All the time.
all the time.
Strategic, measurable,
Yeah,
attainable,
let's-
relevant, timely.
Let's update those SMART goals, because if you're giving too much to the employee, and the employee is a pleaser type of personality,
Mhm.
yes, I can do that, and then they're overloaded, and then the things aren't getting achieved, and they're not making those due dates, then you're dealing with having to have those not so comfortable conversations. So this is a time to set up for success.
Exactly. And you want to help that individual be successful. You want to help them. But you coach them along the way. This is the thing I hate you when you have I won't say hate, that's not a good word. I don't like it when you get to an annual appraisal and you did not even check in or review the expectations with the employee. When it's time for the annual yearly appraisal, you tell them what they did not do. But what did you do as a leader? You know, did you sit down and talk with them about that? Did you go over with them? And I always have my notepad with me, because when I got back to my office, I had a file on every instructor, and I kept this in the file. So I know when I go back for references, I had the date, the time, and what the discussion was about. Because like everybody else, we're going to sleep at night and we're going to forget the next day. So we have to have that. Good point. Thank you, Denise. What else did we miss? It is now 1:07. I know we started a little late, but I want to be respectful for everyone's time. I want to thank you for coming out today, each of you. I appreciate these